metal spheres just washed ashore in Australia. And when people see something like this, the speculation starts fast. Space debris? Secret technology? Something stranger? And this is not the first time mysterious metal objects have captured public attention. In 1974, a strange sphere found its way to Florida to become one of the most famous "what is this thing" stories in UFO history. But today's case may tell us something much bigger about what's happening above Earth. I'm Dr. Amanda Fetch, aka Dr. Amanda Analytics, and I research AI and space situational awareness, and on this channel I look at the stories behind the space headlines. What we know, what we don't know, and where this may be heading. So let's start with a new report from Space.com. According to Space.com, 2 large metallic spheres recently washed ashore on Forest Beach in Queensland, Australia. The Australian Space Agency believes these objects are consistent with pressure vessels from a foreign rocket body that recently re-entered Earth's atmosphere. Authorities are asking the public not to touch the objects, while investigators work with international partners to formally identify the launch vehicle responsible. At first glance, this sounds like another unusual space headline, but as I started digging into this story, I realized something pretty interesting. First, this isn't the first time Australia has found mysterious objects arriving from space. Back in 2023, another large metal object washed ashore in Western Australia. On a beach, I should say. Initially, no one knew exactly what it was. After working with international partners, investigators confirmed it was part of one of India's polar satellite launch vehicles. What started as another mysterious discovery ultimately had a very ordinary explanation: rocket hardware returning to Earth. Now that got me wondering, why do mysterious metal spheres always seem to capture our imagination? Now, one of the most famous examples is the Betz Sphere from Florida, based here in the United States in 1974. After a forest fire, a family discovered a strange metallic sphere on their property. They claimed it rolled on its own, made unusual sounds, and behaved in ways they couldn't explain. Naturally, speculation exploded. Was it military technology, an alien artifact, some kind of secret government experiment? Eventually, after investigations by the United States Navy and outside experts, the object was determined to be a manufactured industrial steel ball. Not extraterrestrial technology after all. It's a fascinating story because it reminds us that whenever people encounter something unusual, our imaginations often fill in the gaps before the actual evidence does. Which brings us back to present day into Australia. Unlike the Betz Sphere, today's investigation already has evidence pointing investigators in a specific direction. The Australian Space Agency believes these objects are likely pressure vessels from a recently re-entered rocket body. We'll still have to wait for formal confirmation of exactly which launch vehicle they came from, but the investigation is already grounded in physical evidence rather than pure speculation. And honestly, that's not the part of the story that interests me the most. The question I've been thinking about isn't just what are these things? Really, it's should we expect to see more stories like this? Remember, as someone like myself who researches space situational awareness, I'm tuned in more to, again, will this continue to happen? I think that's the much bigger conversation. Over the last several years, we've seen an incredible increase in launches from governments and commercial companies alike around the world. More satellites, more rocket launches, more activity in orbit. And what that means is, eventually, more hardware is going to be returning back down to Earth. I recently covered this in another video that I posted out on my YouTube channel. After the Space Symposium, I discussed, well, I should say where it was discussed, the U.S. Space Force's projection of more than 30,000 satellites in orbit by 2040. So in my YouTube video, I looked into how rapidly growing satellite constellations, increasing orbital congestion, and improved tracking capabilities are changing space situational awareness in the space environment, and why simply having more data doesn't automatically lead to better decisions. As we launch more satellites and continue expanding commercial and government space operations, it's left to be seen, will we also see more hardware eventually making its way back through Earth's atmosphere? That doesn't necessarily mean we're doing something wrong, but these events should start to cause some alarm. Because now we're raising important questions about tracking reentries, identifying debris, coordinating internationally, and how responsibly we should be managing an increasingly crowded space environment. This is exactly why space situational awareness has become so important. So now, again, it's not just us talking about what's floating around up there in orbit today. Now we have to dive deep into understanding how an increasingly active space environment is affecting our operations, our safety here on Earth, and decision making. So to me, these two metal spheres aren't just an interesting news story. They're a reminder to us of how quickly our activity in space is changing, and how that change is starting to become visible back here on Earth. So I'll definitely be watching to see, personally myself, whether authorities officially identify the launch vehicle responsible, but I'm also going to be watching something even bigger. Will stories like this become increasingly common over the next, do I want to say, few years, few months, as launch activity continues to accelerate? Or are these going to remain rare events that simply capture our attention because of how unusual they seem? So I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. Do you think discoveries like this will become more common as our space activity increases or continues to increase? Or do you think they're going to be relatively rare? And if you'd like to learn more about the growing challenge of managing an increasingly crowded space environment, be sure to check out my recent video on the United States Space Force's projection of 30,000 satellites by 2040. I think it provides important context for understanding why stories like this may become increasingly relevant. So if you enjoyed this discussion today, don't forget to subscribe. On this channel, we don't just cover today's space news, we explore what it could mean for the future for all of us. So until next time, keep looking up and keep asking questions. Take care. Thanks for tuning in.